Water, in the form of rain, rivers, glaciers, and sea, dominates every facet of life in southeast Alaska. Water sculpted the topography, influenced the history, and shapes the environment today. Water binds communities together and isolates them from the world outside. And water created the rainforest called Tongass.
To me, the essence of southeast Alaska is lushness, a land that's covered with an incredible richness and diversity of plant life, especially. The essence of southeast Alaska, too, is rain. Without the rain, we don't have the lushness.
This lushness comes from year-round moisture. More than 100 inches of precipitation falls annually over much of this land. In winter, it accumulates as snow. Enough gathers in the mountains to fuel more than 50 major glaciers. Because it receives more rain than the plants actually need, the Tongass is defined as a rainforest. The largest rainforests are in the tropics and occupy 3% of the Earth's surface. Temperate rainforests are 1/20th their size and are located along shorelines. Temperate rainforests are found in the South Pacific, Asia, Northern Europe, Chile, and the northwest coast of North America. This temperate rainforest runs from Washington State through British Columbia and Alaska's Inside Passage to Kodiak Island. It is the largest temperate rainforest in the world, and at its heart is America's largest national forest, the Tongass. The Tongass National Forest covers 90% of Alaska's southeastern panhandle. Here, water and land fit together like parts of a giant jigsaw puzzle. The Coast Range Mountains drop abruptly into the Pacific and form a chain of 1,000 islands. The protected waters between the islands and the mainland are the Inside Passage. The short distance between the cold waters of the North Pacific and the hard ice of the mountain tops contains the variety of the Tongass. The variety of the Tongass may be seen at every different elevation in the forest. The shoreline, for example, is marked by tidal flats, estuaries, and river deltas. The Stikine River Delta is prime habitat for thousands of birds.
First we have the bald eagles that come in and concentrate, and what we believe is that they're concentrating for the hooligan run or the smelt that come in mid-April. And we've estimated a peak of about 1,600 eagles that come in here, and we believe this is about the second largest concentration of bald eagles in North America, next to the chilcat. Then about the time the eagles are kind of falling off in numbers and the smelt run's dying out is the snow geese start coming in. And We have documented anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 snow geese that concentrate on the flats out there.
Eagles and snow geese are followed by spring migrations of shorebirds. There may be as many as 300,000 when they peak in early May. One of the most common shorebirds is the sandpiper.
Seeing large numbers of these shorebirds, 100, 150, 200,000 birds in one flock is really a magnificent sight. The flashes, it's like a kaleidoscope as the birds move and wave through the air. The undersides are white and the tops are brownish, and so as the birds fly and wheel and turn, the flashes of white of parts of the flock are waving through the air. It's a sight that one would never forget.
Rising up from the shoreline is the thick forest, which accounts for about 60% of the Tongass. This is the luxuriant, temperate rainforest environment of dominating hemlock, spruce, and cedar. The tallest trees tower 200 feet over the small plants on the forest floor.
This is a 2-year-old seedling of a hemlock, and it's most likely not going to make it. It's too shaded, but if a tree falls over and there's more light, it might grow into a giant dominant of the rainforest.
Left undisturbed, the forest undergoes a natural cycle of growth and decay. Old trees fall and decompose. Nutrients return to the soil. The new openings in the canopy allow light to reach the forest floor. Shrubs and young trees surge upward. As trees grow, the canopy gradually closes. The forest cycle continues.
I've measured trees as much as 750 years old here in the Tongass, and we know the cedars can exceed 1,000 years of age. But a typical dominant tree in an old-growth forest here is generally in the range of 200 to 500 years old.
Oh yeah, good shot.
Many streams in the Tongass are home to spawning salmon. The fish attract hungry bears. A few streams attract so many bears that sightings are almost guaranteed. Because so many people come to watch black bears at Annan Creek, facilities have been built to accommodate the public and protect the animals.
This is a good spot to watch. They'll also come out right here by this fence and walk down here, go right down there, and in that pool of, can you see the fish down in there? They'll catch a fish in there. Sometimes they'll come right here and sit and eat.
Muskegs and bogs are interspersed throughout the forest. These poorly drained areas have soil so oxygen deficient and acidic that trees die out. A thick layer of spongy, decaying organic material accumulates. The few trees that continue to grow have stunted shapes that belie their age. Shore pines in the muskeg areas of the Tongass can be 200 years old, but still remarkably small in size.
When you get high enough in the mountains here, you eventually run out of trees. And in the high country, there are big green sprawls of meadows that are just drawn like cloth over the mountains. And that's a world unto itself.
In the Tongass, this world above timberline starts at about 2,500 feet. On some grassy ridges, distinct trails have been cut, not by the hand of man, but by the feet of generations of grizzly bears. For thousands of years, bears have placed their paws exactly over the prints of their ancestors. Like this dotted path, other trails lead to the top of the Tongass.
The lower slopes in that valley there you can actually see the bare ice in a few of the crevasses, and usually those are covered with snow in June. That's the Ptarmigan Glacier.
The Ptarmigan is one of 38 glaciers flowing from the 1,500 square mile Juneau ice field. Alpine hikers may approach the glaciers on foot. Many more take their view of the frozen Tongass from the air. This expanse of snow and ice may look inhospitable, but since 1959, the Juneau ice field has been the summertime home for researchers. Global warming has been one area of study.
At 22?
It's going to be very low density.
The glaciers that stem from the Juneau ice field are acutely sensitive to climatic change. The Mendenhall Glacier, for example, in the past 240 years has had 16 major pulsations. Inland 500 miles, the small glaciers there, in that period of 240 years have only had 2 fluctuations, 2 moraines. So you can see we're very sensitive to relatively small climatic changes that have great global significance.
Today, permanent snow and ice cover 10% of southeast Alaska. 20,000 years ago, at the height of the last ice age, ice covered everything except the highest mountain peaks. The advancing glaciers carved today's landscape. Then the climate warmed. The retreating glaciers left behind ocean-filled fjords.
Here, it feels as if there's a deep continuity that goes back farther than any human being can reach. That what was wild here 10,000 years ago is wild here today. What was beautiful here 10,000 years ago is beautiful here today. And so it feels like an enormous privilege to live in this place.
No one knows when the first people started to live in this place. But at least several thousand years ago, ancestors of North American Indians migrated down the river corridors from Canada and interior Alaska. They settled in coastal villages in what is now the Tongass National Forest. Evidence of those earliest residents still remains today.
And we know that from the evidence on the tide flats and up on the forested areas that this was a prehistoric fish camp occupied probably by the Tlingit Indians perhaps thousands of years ago.
they use stone tools to make this. You know, these stakes here have a potential to be about 3,000, 3,500 years old. So these stakes would have stood up even higher than this, right along in here, and then there would have been twigs and branches woven in between that would have acted as a basket or a net to keep the salmon inside.
The Tlinkits and Haida Indians flourished in the nurturing environment that would become the Tongass. A complex culture developed. Arts flourished. Food was plentiful in the forest and the nearby waters. The same waters used by the first residents played an important part in later history. Russians sailed to Sitka and established headquarters for their fur-gathering ventures in Russian America. They were followed by European and American explorers and entrepreneurs. The U.S. purchased Alaska from Russia in 1867. Gradually, towns grew, some driven by fishing, others by mining, logging, and government. Despite changes, many parts of the native culture have survived. One is the name of this forest. It's derived from the Tongass clan of Tlinkits that lived on a small island near Ketchikan. Today, about 18% of Southeast Alaska residents are Alaska natives. Many still have strong attachments to earlier traditions, including food gathering and art.
It's a northern geometric, a raven's tail weaving, a kind of traditional weaving that was probably done here about 200 years ago by my great-grandmothers, I suppose.
What they call today the art of the Northwest Coast, it was a utilitarian in the past. It was whatever they made, used, their hooks, their spoons, their clan crests were carved on it.
Well, today we're going to go out and look for herring spawn on kelp. And when we get home, we cook it up and eat it and put some in the freezer. We're doing a very necessary part of our life, you know, and that's putting away the fish eggs.
Oh, it tastes crunchy.
In the Tongass, what's going on in the natural world around you is really inescapable. The forest and the wildlife really impinge on our towns here. And when you get to the edge of town, you really are at the edge of town and you really are in wild country. What that does is it makes you more aware of what's going on in nature.
This closeness to nature is a fact of life for everyone living in Southeast Alaska. Like the communities of early residents, today's towns and villages still cling to narrow strips of flat land between the mountains and the sea. Most of the 70,000 who call Southeast Alaska home live and work within sight of the Tongass. In addition to sharing the Tongass as their backyard, Southeast residents also share the damp weather that produces the rainforest. Some get frustrated by the rain. Most just accept it. some with a sense of humor.
It's a wonderful day if you like stepping out of your car to go skinny dipping. It's a wonderful day if you like rain. Well, if you like dressing in rubberized boots, walking around in survival suits, now it's a wonderful day. I said it's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful day if you like rain. If you like rain. If you like rain. If you like rain.
Regardless of the weather, this forest has always been used by the people who live here. It's a place to play, certainly. It's also a place to gather food. And it is a place to work. The Tongass was established as a national forest in 1907. It's owned by the people of the United States and managed by the United States Forest Service. Federal law mandates that this 17 million acre national forest should accommodate many different interests and many different uses. Large-scale logging began on the Tongass in the mid-1950s. Clear-cutting is the logging technique used. Cut areas are regenerated naturally and may be reharvested in 100 years. Most of the cut wood goes to large pulp mills in Ketchikan and Sitka. In addition to logging on public lands authorized by the Forest Service, logging also takes place on private lands owned by Alaska Native corporations. In recent years, there's been renewed interest in gold and other kinds of mining. Like other public lands in Alaska and the rest of the country, there is debate over how the Tongass National Forest should be managed. Differences arise over wilderness and logging and mining, habitat for animals, streams for spawning salmon, old-growth trees, jobs, tourism, economic development.
And so you get this tremendous tension between people. But what impresses me, maybe more than anything else, is that people can have such strong opinions on opposite ends of the spectrum about conservation versus development, and yet can get along really well with each other as neighbors. And I think that's part of the magic of the human side of living in the Tongass.
Whether living here or just visiting, each forest user has brought and taken away something different from their time in the Tongass. Through it all, this great green forest in southeast Alaska continues.
when you see a place like this, I think it moves you to understand just how intricate and glorious and spectacular the workings of the natural world can be. It gives us a glimpse, I think, at the world as it really should be. A world in which people do live, but in which there is a place for all of nature.
For further information on how to obtain your individual copy of Alaska Rainforest, the Tongass, write to KTOO Videos, Juneau, Alaska 99801.